Chapter 281 Tsunade's Sense of Crisis. Tsunade's eyebrows furrowed sharply. She took Li Yi's hand and wanted to take him away to a remote corner. But Violet followed immediately, her eyes cautious, for fear that Li Yi would be in danger. Tsunade whispered, "Don't let her follow us. Violet, you wait here first, I'll do something with Tsunade." Li Yi was puzzled, he still said, "Okay." The Violet Stinger nodded lightly and agreed very readily. Tsunade dragged Li Yi to a small alley, gave Li Yi a waldong directly, frowned and asked, "Li Yi, answer me truthfully, you can't lie to me." "It depends on what question you ask me. If you ask me if you are pretty, then I have to lie." Li Yi smiled. Tsunade frowned and said seriously, "Li Yi, I'm not kidding you." "Okay." Li Yi pouted and nodded in agreement. "I ask you, have you already had that kind of relationship with Violet?" Tsunade first glanced around to confirm that there was no one around, and then asked in a low voice. "No." Li Yi shook his head. "Then why is she so obedient to you?" Tsunade asked. "Her attitude towards you is exactly the attitude of the little daughter-in-law to her husband. What the husband says, the little daughter-in-law does what she does. There is absolutely nothing else. I saved her life. She wants to repay her kindness, so she is loyal to me." He couldn't tell Tsunade about the System family, so he could only lie. "No, she's so submissive to you, I even doubt that even if you let her die, she won't even blink her brows," Tsunade said. Hearing this, Li Yi had to sigh with emotion that a woman's sixth sense is really strong. Indeed, after becoming Li Yi's family, Violet has only one person and one man in her heart, and that is Li Yi. It's an exaggeration, she doesn't care about her brother Tianbao's life or death now. The important ratio of Li Yi to her is as high as 99.999%. So, even if Li Yi told her to die, she would die without hesitation. Li Yi thought that Violet had covered it up carefully enough, but Tsunade still noticed the clue. Suddenly, Tsunade's conversation changed. "Anyway, you can't live with her, she's so pretty, with a good figure and a good voice, I won't allow the two of you to live together. No matter how beautiful others are, they are not as beautiful as you." Because Tsunade was on the wall against Li Yi at this time, so Li Yi hugged Tsunade and nibbled hard on her pink cheeks that were alluring and penetrating Yuhi. "HMPH, rascal, are you worthy of Makoto?" Although he said so, Tsunade did not resist. Not only that, but she also wrapped her arms around Li Yi's waist and spit out a fragrance into Li Yi's face. "What is there to say? Saying so with your mouth, your body is very honest, Tilda. However, one thing to say, Tsunade is very confident in all aspects of his appearance, body, temperament, and so on." Even Uchiha Makoto, who had already had that kind of relationship with Li Yi, didn't give her much sense of crisis. However, Tsunade sensed a strong sense of crisis from Violet's body. For some reason, she just didn't want Violet to stay by Li Yi's side, she just thought that Li Yi would be tempted by Violet sooner or later. Even Tsunade has this sense of crisis, one can imagine how lovely Violet is. Chapter 282-Fair Competition. Li Yi hugged Tsunade's shoulders, not letting her back, ready to kiss her at any time. However, even if Li Yi didn't hold her, she didn't want to step back, instead she took the initiative to hug Li Yi's waist. Moreover, the mouths of the two are also very close to each other. As Tsunade spoke, the fragrance from Cherry's small mouth all blew on Li Yi's face. Li Yi is distracted. Tsunade is beautiful, really beautiful. Therefore, Li Yi couldn't help but wanted to kiss Tsunade. But at this moment, Tsunade suddenly opened his mouth and asked with a frown, "You want to kiss me?" Li Yi blinked, not knowing what to say for a while. "Yes, I just want to kiss you." However, before Li Yi could think of how to respond, Tsunade kissed him directly. Of course, before this action, Tsunade first glanced around to confirm that there was no one around, and then took the initiative to kiss. With Tsunade taking the initiative, Lee Yi naturally didn't want to be left behind, and used both his skills and his tongue. The dark little alley is shrouded in an increasingly ambiguous atmosphere. Suddenly, Tsunade pushed Lee Yi away, lowered his head and said, "Lee Yi, we can't do this, you already have Makoto, it's not right for us to do this." Lee Yi's forehead. Since it is wrong to do so, why did you take the initiative just now? However, Lee Yi also knows that Tsunade's mood is quite complicated now. She didn't want to give up on herself, but she also wanted to fulfill Makoto. Moreover, she seems to be a little addicted to secretly having an affair with herself behind Makoto's back. Did I develop some potential properties of Tsunade? Lee Yi teased in his heart. Your mouth is my mouth, Yuhi. At this moment, Tsunade said softly, and stretched out his small hand, trying to wipe the Yuhi mark from Lee Yi's mouth. However, Lee Yi licked it with his tongue and swallowed Yuhi. An instant, Tsunade's cheeks, neck, and even ears were all Yuhi. Lee Yi grinned at Tsunade, the sun was shining brightly. HMPH, big villain, you know how to bully people tilde. Tsunade said so, but she hugged Lee Yi even tighter, and her profile was snuggled into Lee Yi's arms. Actually, I have an idea. Tsunade said, drawing circles with his fingertips on Lee Yi's chest. What thoughts? Lee Yi asked. The idea of playing fair with Makoto. Tsunade said. Huh. Lee Yi narrowed his eyes. Tsunade continued, as long as I do the same thing with her, then I can be with her. However, before Tsunade finished speaking, a clear female voice suddenly sounded from not far away. Master Tsunade, what are you doing here? The voice was familiar. Tsunade shuddered, hurriedly trying to push Lee Yi away. Lee Yi is now Uchiha Makoto's man, what kind of formality does he and he hug each other? But in the end, Tsunade didn't do that, and turned his head to look calmly. Because she knew that she must not panic. Once panic, it will expose greater suspicion. It is indeed the old rivers and lakes. Looking around, the speaker was a Yuhi-haired woman who looked like a fairy. Uzumaki Kushina. At this moment, she was standing at the entrance of the alley, looking at the two people hugging each other, and said, Lee Yi, why are you here, what are you two doing? Saying that, she ignored Namikaze Minato's dissuasion and walked into the alley with a laugh. Tsunade was calm and replied, Lee Yi was injured a little to save Makoto, and I'm treating him. Oh, is it? The therapy still requires holding each other. It's the first time I've heard of it. Uzumaki Kushina said with a laugh. There is something in the words. Chapter 283_Woman Fighting. Tsunade tapped his head and loosened Lee Yi's waist at the same time, and said, That's right, I'm a medical ninja after all. Really? Uzumaki Kushina smiled coldly. Well, yes. Tsunade nodded again. Uzumaki Kushina didn't believe it. However, Tsunade has power and power, no matter how straight she is, she doesn't want to offend Tsunade. Therefore, she put her cold eyes on Lee Yi and said, Lee Yi, I know that you are Makoto's savior. For this matter, I would like to say thank you for saving me girlfriend's life. Lee Yi smiled. It should be done. Uzumaki Kushina suddenly changed the conversation, but you have to know how to keep yourself clean. You already have Makoto as a woman, so don't have sex with other women. This is your responsibility to Makoto, but also to yourself. Lee Yi blinked. It seems Uzumaki Kushina has guessed it. However, before Lee Yi could speak, Tsunade smiled lightly and said, What should Lee Yi do? It seems that it's not your turn to teach you. Master Tsunade, I'm just giving Lee Yi the most reasonable advice. Uzumaki Kushina said coldly. Tsunade folded his arms, shook his head and said, I don't know if it's reasonable or not. All I know is that Lee Yi is an independent individual, and we can't interfere with every decision he makes. Tsunade, what if he made the wrong decision? Uzumaki Kushina kept staring at Tsunade. Tsunade replied, Even if it's wrong, it's his own decision. It has nothing to do with us. We're all adults. Since we've done it, we'll be responsible, right or wrong. But I don't want to force him to do it." Quote. Something in her words, alluding to Uchiha Makoto pushing Lee for this matter. Hearing this, Uzumaki Kushina was furious, and the long yuhi-colored hair on his head gradually floated up, like a root of yuhi peppers facing the sky. Seeing that the situation was not good, Namikaze Minato hurriedly said, "Master Tsunade, Brother Lee, I have something to do with Kushina, so I won't stay here, let's go first." After he finished speaking, he grabbed Uzumaki Kushina and used Hiraishin's technique. With a flick of his body, the two disappeared in place. Swish. Uzumaki Kushina left. Tsunade folded his arms, raised his nose slightly, and a delicate humming sound came from Chang's nose. Proud and Tsunade, "Huh, just that woman, still want to teach me." Lee shrugged and smiled without saying a word. The battle between women is always so wonderful. "Lee, should I help you and take down Kushina?" Tsunade suddenly leaned most of his delicate body on Lee's body and asked with a smile. "Huh?" Lee was taken aback. Tsunade explained, "Don't play stupid, just let that little girl Kushina fall in love with you, and then you dump her ruthlessly to get revenge for today, how about that?" Lee's forehead and said, "Don't do this, it's not fair to Namikaze Minato. How can there be absolute justice in this world? If she provokes me, then I have to retaliate, but I can't give her physical revenge, so I can only play psychological warfare." Tsunade smiled playfully, like a little devil who can do all kinds of evil. In fact, this is the true face of Tsunade. As the granddaughter of the first-generation Hokage, who was overly spoiled by the second-generation Hokage, and an apprentice of the third-generation Hokage, Tsunade has been spoiled since childhood. In recent years, after the tragic death of his younger brother and the death of his confidant, Tsunade's character has slightly restrained. However, the state is easy to change, and the nature is hard to change. "Oh, that girl Kushina, I'm afraid it will suffer." Lee smiled bitterly in his heart. Chapter 284-dissatisfied. Namikaze Minato used the technique of Hiraishin and returned home directly with Uzumaki Kushina. Uzumaki Kushina looked dissatisfied and scolded, "Minato, why don't you let me continue?" Minato sighed lightly and said, "Master Tsunade is also very short-tempered. If you keep talking, the two of you will probably fight." "Fight, fight, who's afraid of whom?" Uzumaki Kushina rolled up his sleeves, his head full of yuhi hair fluttering, and said, "Lee, that scumbag, with Makoto and not being specific to Makoto, I'm really mad at me." Hearing this, Minato looked puzzled and asked, "Brother Lee and Makoto don't seem to be lovers yet, why is he not single?" "What do you know? The two of them are now." Having said that, Uzumaki Kushina stretched out his hands, matched a 0 with his left hand and a 1 with his right hand, and then smashed the 1 into the 0. Namikaze Minato's eyes lit up and asked incredulously, "Really?" "Of course it's true," and Makoto took the initiative. Uzumaki Kushina head taps. "Then he's on 2 boats now, and what he's doing is really not right." Minato nodded. "It's more than just 2 boats. I heard that there is a woman from our Uzumaki clan beside him. She obeys him, and I'm afraid she also likes him. Alas, I really don't know where that man is. There are so many women like him." Quote. Uzumaki Kushina sighed lightly, "If I had known this, I shouldn't have let Makoto take the initiative to do that. Alas, Makoto is suffering." Seeing Uzumaki Kushina sighing non-stop, Minato frowned slightly and asked, "What is your suggestion?" "Yes." Uzumaki Kushina nodded. "What's wrong? Is there any problem?" Minato said solemnly, "Kushina, I know that you have a good relationship with Makoto and think about her and everything, but don't make up your mind about such a lifelong decision." "Huh?" Uzumaki Kushina has a strong personality and refuses to admit defeat. Hearing Minato educate himself, although he was a little uncomfortable, he didn't refute anything. he could only snort lightly with his arms folded. Because she knew she was wrong. If I had known Li Yi was such a scumbag, I shouldn't have let Makoto do stupid things. Uzumaki Kushina fell into deep regret. Kushina, don't think about this matter. The soldiers will block the water and cover it up. I believe that the Li Yi brothers are capable of handling this matter. Besides, we still have things to do. Minato's eyes suddenly softened. Uzumaki Kushina understood and said, "It's daytime now, let's talk about it at night." Minato hugged Uzumaki Kushina and exhaled in her ear. "Is it okay now? I have a mission at night, maybe not in the village." Uzumaki Kushina had to agree. "My Kushina is the best." Minato was gentle, picked up Uzumaki Kushina's delicate body, and walked into the bedroom. After 10 minutes, Minato came out of the bedroom, in a good mood, went into the bathroom and started to take a shower. Meanwhile, in the bedroom, Uzumaki Kushina was lying on the bed with his limbs wide open, but his pretty face was full of disappointment. She thought to herself, Minato shouldn't practice the Hiraishin technique. It's not a good thing if it's too fast. However, she has entrusted herself to Minato. Therefore, no matter how much she is dissatisfied, she can only turn into a faint sigh in the end. Chapter 285-Toolman. Tsunade and Li Yi talked again for a while, then stopped talking and returned to Violet's side. "Sister Violet, how about staying with me in the future?" Tsunade got straight to the point and asked directly. Violet set her eyes on Li Yi. Li Yi looked at Tsunade and said, "Actually, you can live together." Huh? Tsunade blinked his beautiful eyes. "Well, you heard that right." Li Yi nodded with a smile. "HMPH, I don't want to live with you, a big pig's hoof." Tsunade raised his neck proudly. "Don't worry, I won't do anything rude to you. Anyway, you are living alone now, so why don't you live with me and take care of you, right?" Li Yi said. "Also, there are 3 bedrooms in my house, each of us 3, how about it?" "Then why don't you come and stay at my house? There are more than 10 bedrooms in my house." Tsunade countered. "All right, I have no opinion." Li Yi nodded. He didn't want Violet to leave his side. Violet is one of his life-saving cards. If the enemy comes and he can't fight or escape, then he will throw away Violet and let Violet hold the enemy with his life and let himself escape. In Li Yi's eyes, except Tsunade and Ayame, everyone else is a tool person. Just that the 2 women, Violet and Makoto, are gradually breaking away from the category of tool people, but Li Yi himself didn't notice this. Li Yi to think that he could throw away the violets at any time, but if that day really came, Li Yi might not be able to do it. Li Yi is old-fashioned, but his heart is full of flesh. How could Li Yi have the heart to watch the woman who accompanied him for so long die? Of course, except for these 4 women, everyone else is a tool for Li Yi. Take it when it's useful, and throw it away when it's not. This cruel idea of his is the foundation of his standing in this cruel world. Tsunade was stubborn, but in action, she returned home with Li Yi and Violet. Tsunade had visited Li Yi's house many times before, but he left after standing for a while, not familiar with Li Yi's house. However, today, Tsunade is like a little daughter-in-law who is about to marry, looking left and right, serious and careful, not letting go of any corners. Li Yi's house has 3 bedrooms, one for his father, one for his mother, and one for himself. However, since his father and his mother left, those 2 rooms were vacant, and after Li Yi occupied this body, he felt that the 2 rooms were unlucky, so he sealed them up and hadn't cleaned them for a long time. When Uchiha Makoto lived at home before, Li Yi would rather sleep on the sofa than in those 2 rooms, and that's why. However, Tsunade opened the door of Li Yi's mother's room and said, "Li Yi, this is your mother's room, I'm staying here tonight." Li Yi said, "You can sleep in my room, my bed is big enough for the 3 of us to do some vigorous exercise." Tsunade rolled his eyes at Li Yi and said angrily, "Dirty." Li Yi touched his nose and smiled, "Then I sleep on the sofa, you can sleep with Violet." That bed, where Makoto slept, right? Tsunade asked. Lee Yi nodded. Then I won't sleep in that bed. Finished speaking, Tsunade crossed his arms and approached Lee Yi's mother's bedroom. Chapter 286-Fancy. That night. Moon stars are rare. Lee Yi's house. Lee Yi was lying on the sofa, holding the back of his head with both hands, closing his eyes and resting. Lee Yi's bedroom. Violet had fallen asleep, but the door was not closed, so Lee Yi could hear Violet's even and rhythmic breathing. On the other hand, Lee Yi's mother's bedroom was closed tightly, and she didn't know what Tsunade was doing inside. Would you like to snap at Tsunade tonight? Lee Yi was in a tangle in his heart. Lee Yi believes that, based on Tsunade's current feelings for him, he has a 40% probability that he can successfully push Tsunade away and make her his own woman. Above, it's a beast. If you don't, it's not as good as a beast. Lee Yi sat up from the sofa, rubbed his temples, opened his eyes, and his eyes flashed with determination. Since ancient times, the courageous and the cowardly have been starved to death. I can't be cowardly. Today is a perfect opportunity. Maybe there will not be such an opportunity in the future. Well, today, let Tsunade become my woman completely. Quote. After making up his mind, Lee Yi clenched his fists, stood up from the sofa, and walked carefully to the door of the room. After twisting the door handle, he found that the door was locked, and Lee Yi could not walk in. Hee, you want to block me by locking the door. Lee Yi sneered, ready to use the power of the door fruit. Lee Yi believes that Tsunade should be sleeping now. With her carefree temperament, it is very likely that she is naked, even if she is not naked, so he plans to teleport directly to Tsunade's side, hug her, and do that to her. A shy thing. However, just when Lee Yi was about to use the power of the door fruit, suddenly, there was a sudden knock on the door from outside the room. Boom. Lee Yi frowned and turned to look at the vibrating door with a trace of displeasure on his face. Who the fuck is that? What time is it? Can you talk about it tomorrow? Therefore, Lee Yi intends to ignore the knock on the door. Even if the King of Heaven is here today, don't think about ruining my good deeds. But just as Lee Yi was about to force his way up, suddenly, with a creak, the door in front of him was opened. Tsunade stuck his head out and saw Lee Yi standing in front of him. He was startled and asked in shock, "What are you doing standing here? It's not me knocking on the door." Although Tsunade only showed a head and neck, but Lee Yi, you can see that she should have no clothes at this time. Suddenly, a flame in Lee Yi's heart was hooked up. The knocking on the door outside the room was still ringing. Tsunade said, "I came to see you so late. It should be an urgent matter. You should go and have a look. Don't delay your business." Tsunade said so. Lee Yi sighed lightly and turned to the door in disappointment. But at this moment, Tsunade's crisp and sweet voice suddenly came from behind. "Wait a minute, come to my room, I have something I want to tell you." Huh. Lee Yi stopped in his footsteps, and suddenly had a wild idea. But the next moment, there was a bang, and apparently, Tsunade closed the door. Lee Yi shrugged, no longer thinking about it, went to the door to open the door. Looking out of the room with a displeased expression, he saw a man wearing a green tights, thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a watermelon hood standing outside the door. "Yo, brother Lee Yi, we meet again." He gave Lee Yi a thumbs up and grinned. The neat white Kiba teeth reflected a bright light in the moonlight. Chapter 287-Assassination Plan begins. It was none other than Might Dai. Lee Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. Might Dai means that Sarutobi Hiruzen's assassination plan has begun. Sure enough, Might Dai said, "Brother Lee Yi, I'm sorry to disturb you so late, but that was Lord Hokage's order. He asked us to go on a mission. We can leave now, without delay." His voice was strong, powerful, and full of passion. Lee Yi asked, "Do you know what the mission is?" Might Dai shook his head. "I don't know, but since this is Lord Hokage's personal order, it must be justice. For justice, I can give my life. After speaking, Might Dai beat his heart, fighting spirit high. Justice. Li Yi smiled with a trace of disdain on his face. Sarutobi Hiruzen assassinated those people, not for justice, but for his own benefit. However, Li Yi didn't say much, but said, "Wait for me, I'll change clothes first." At this time, Li Yi was wearing pajamas. He couldn't kill people in pajamas, right? Might Dai nodded. Okay. Suddenly the conversation changed. However, Brother Li Yi, hurry up. Lord Hokage said that there is only one chance, and in more than 10 minutes, we have to ambush there first, and we must not miss this opportunity. Well, okay, you come in and have a seat too. Li Yi nodded, turned and entered the room. Might Dai didn't enter the room, but stood at the door of the room, gesticulating with fists and feet, his face full of expectant expressions. Li Yi sighed inwardly. Like Might Dai is full of enthusiasm for life, full of passion for life, and never gives up easily at any time. He thought that Sarutobi Hiruzen personally ordered him to go out to carry out the task, to look down on him, but in fact he regarded him as the best tool. At this moment, the door of Tsunade's room opened. She stuck out a head, saw that Li Yi had changed her clothes, and asked, "Are you going out on a mission?" Li Yi nodded. Tsunade immediately closed the door, and at the same time her voice came from the room. "I'm going too, you wait for me to get dressed." Hearing this, Li Yi sneered and said to himself, "Sure enough, I don't have any clothes on." However, the next moment, he said, "You don't have to go, just wait for me at home, I won't be in danger, don't worry." After speaking, he quickly ran to Might Dai's side and put his right hand on his shoulder. Might Dai thought that Li Yi was greeting him, grinned, and also raised his right hand, ready to put it on Li Yi's shoulder. But at this moment, an oval-shaped hole suddenly appeared under the feet of the two of them, and then with the scream of Might Dai, the two fell directly. The opening of the cave closed instantly, and the space returned to its original state. A few seconds later, Tsunade walked out of the room. She was wearing a tight and capable ninja uniform, and she drew a perfect curve. However, she saw that Li Yi and Might Dai had disappeared, and immediately ran outside the door to see Shangji, but still did not see the two of them, stomped his feet angrily, pouted his mouth and muttered. "Who is it? People care about you so much, but you don't take me with you. Do you think I'm a burden? HMPH, Li Yi, I bet your mission will end in failure." As we all know, Tsunade is notoriously bad at gambling. Chapter 288 _ The trick worked. Li Yi directly teleported the Might Dai space and came outside the village. Might Dai looked surprised, looked to the right and exclaimed, "Wow, Brother Li Yi, are you too good? Space ninjutsu, how did you learn it?" "Blood follows the boundaries of talent," Li Yi said. "Talent, so it is." Might Dai's face. "He has no talent and can only rely on hard work in this life." Li Yi patted him on the shoulder and said, "In many cases, hard work is more important than talent. Although you are only a genin, I believe in your strength and your character, and give me my back. I am absolutely at ease." What Li Yi said was not false at all, it was the truth. Moreover, Might Dai is a straight-minded person without any scheming. Therefore, hearing Li Yi's words, he was moved to tears. He hugged Li Yi with tears in his nose and shouted loudly, "Brother Li Yi, don't worry, even if I die, I will not let you have an accident. I will use my life as a guarantee." Li Yi shook his head to comfort him. "Don't say these unlucky words, how can you die so easily if you work so hard?" Having said that, the corners of Li Yi's mouth evoked a slight arc. The trick worked. Might Dai is eternal genin, he is very unpopular on weekdays, everyone looks down on him, doesn't talk to him, and ignores him. But today, the man in front of him believed him so much and jumped out of those sincere words, how could he not be moved? Afterwards, Li Yi said, "Let's go, time waits for no one, let's go to ambush, you lead the way, I'll follow." Good. Might Dai nodded, glanced around, finally determined the direction, and ran quickly. Li Yi followed closely behind. After 3 or 4 minutes, the two arrived at their destination. Might Dai is a genin, he has a lot of experience. After looking around, he immediately found an excellent hiding place and said, "Brother Li Yi, go there and hide." Fine. Li Yi nodded and walked towards the grass not far away. But I saw Might Dai walking in the opposite direction. Li Yi asked, "Where are you going?" "That grass can only hold one person, I'll find another place." Might Dai explained without turning his head. Li Yi smiled. The only hiding place here is the dense grass, but Might Dai took the initiative to give him to himself, which shows his character. However, Li Yi did not shirk. As the saying goes, people are not for their own sake. Li Yi has sworn a long time ago that he will only live for himself in this life. Whether others live or die has nothing to do with him, even if he steps on the death of others. Let himself live alone, he can do it too. Therefore, Li Yi hid in the grass and lay on the ground. Might Dai hid in a tree not far away, hiding his breath. Time passed slowly. There are no human voices around, only the sounds of various insects and birds. Suddenly, Li Yi frowned slightly, as if he heard something, and immediately put his ears on the ground, listening to the sound of the earth. Dong dong dong. You can clearly hear the sound of dense footsteps in the distance. Li Yi roughly deduced that there were probably 20 people who came, and each of them was extraordinary. At this time, Might Dai also noticed it, and immediately made a gesture to Li Yi, telling him that the enemy was coming soon. Chapter 289-Fake. There were 12 people in total. 8 people carried 2 sedan chairs, and the remaining 4 were all jonin, protecting the nobles in the sedan chairs. And the people Li Yi and Might Dai wanted to assassinate in this mission were the 2 sitting in the sedan chair. Looking at the forehead guards of the 4 jonin, it is clear that these 4 are from Konoha village. Li Yi glanced at Might Dai to see his reaction. However, Might Dai squinted his eyes, and murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Oh. Li Yi was a little surprised. Can you do it to your compatriots too? However, the next moment, Li Yi understood. Might Dai must have thought that the 4 were disguised as enemy ninjas. Otherwise, how could an upright and kind person like him be able to do something to his fellow countrymen? Finally, the 12 people came. Might Dai waved to Li Yi and made a gesture, indicating that the chance to shoot has come. Then, he crossed his arms and shouted in his heart, "The 4th injury door, open." Boom! Erupted from Might Dai's body. Might Dai's body was instantly covered with a layer of green steam. The next moment, Might Dai was like an arrow from the string, breaking the tree and rushing straight up. Enemy attack. 4 jonins fought Might Dai. Li Yi didn't make a move, and was still lying in the grass. In the original Hokage book, Might Dai opened 8 doors and directly beat up the 7 people with the ninja sword, and killed more than half of them. And now, the other party is only 4 ordinary jonin, so Might Dai has no suspense, no need for Li Yi to shoot. Sure enough, in less than a minute, the 4 jonin were bruised by Might Dai's beating. Might Dai didn't bother with them, and rushed straight to the 2 sedan chairs. "This green dress. I know you, you're Might Dai. Dai, why did you attack us? Did you defect?" 4 jonin suddenly changed his face and shouted loudly. Might Dai stopped. But the next moment, he sneered and said with disdain, "It seems that you know our Konoha village very well, even my genin, you have been investigating so carefully, you are a big threat and have to be removed. The 5th gate, open the door." Quote. Might Dai crossed his arms, roared up to the sky, and swung his arms abruptly. The momentum bursting from his body suddenly formed a green gust of wind, which roared between the heaven and the earth. In an instant, his speed was twice as fast as before, turning into a straight streamer, rushing towards a sedan chair. "Dai, don't be stupid, we're all from Konoha. If you kill them, there's no turning back." For Jonan couldn't keep up with Might Dai's speed and could only shout. However, Might Dai ignored it at all, and rushed straight into the sedan chair at a speed like lightning. The next moment, a loud boom sounded like a bomb exploded, and it suddenly sounded between the heavens and the earth. I saw the wooden sedan chair suddenly explode, and a green streamer flew out from the sky of sawdust. Was beaten out. Exactly Might Dai. There was a trace of blood on the corner of his mouth, and the green light on his body swayed and fluctuated, like a candle in the wind, and it would go out the next moment. And among the sawdust in the sky, stood a white-haired old woman, about 70 or 80 years old, holding a fan and expressionless. Hee, Watanabe, using all your strength against a genin, are you making a big fuss? At this moment, an old male voice came from another sedan chair. The white-haired old woman snorted coldly and said indifferently, I'll never show mercy to missing nin, kill him, and then hurry up. Chapter 290-Fierce Battle. The white-haired old woman's name is Watanabe Mi, and she is about 60 or 70 years old. Although she is not young, she is full of energy and has a sonorous and powerful voice. At the same time, a white-haired old man walked out of the other sedan chair. He was a little older, about 70 or 80 years old. He was leaning on crutches and looked old. But his eyes are exceptionally bright, like two torches, exuding a strong sense of coercion, making people dare not look directly. As long as you are not blind, you can tell at a glance that these are two extremely powerful characters. Might Dai was covered in green steam, flipped 7 or 8 somersaults in the sky, and finally landed on the ground, kneeling on one knee. Blood was still flowing from the corner of his mouth, and his breath was a little disordered. Obviously, he was seriously injured. At this time, the white-haired old woman put her eyes on Might Dai's body, to be precise, on Might Dai's forehead, squinted her eyes and said, a mere genin dares to attack me, who gave you the guts? Do you know who I am? Might Dai wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said with a cold snort, I don't know who you are, but I only have one mission, and that is to kill you. Speaking, Might Dai turned into a straight streamer again, straight at the white-haired old woman. The white-haired old woman slowly raised the fan in her hand and said with a sneer, since you want to die so much, then I will fulfill you. Before he finished speaking, the fan slammed. Call. The wind roared like a wave. With a loud boom, Might Dai's extremely fast body was directly fanned out, and his feet painted 2 deep marks on the ground. However, Might Dai was protected this time, so he was not injured. After stabilizing his body, he immediately turned into a straight streamer and rushed forward. The white-haired old woman frowned. She used 80% of her power in the blow just now. Logically speaking, it was enough to beat a genin into flesh-chan. However, the genin in front of him was unscathed, which was really weird. Hee, Watanabe, just because he's just a genin, you can't take it lightly, or I'll help you. At this time, the white-haired old man spoke, and after speaking, he raised his right hand, and the lightning flashed in his palm, aiming at Might Dai. The next moment, the white-haired old man squinted his eyes and shouted in a low voice, Death! Boom! A bolt of lightning turned into a python, gushing out from the palm of the white-haired old man, making a crackling roar, extremely fast, and landed directly on Might Dai. Boom! Might Dai was blasted out again, and the clothes on his body began to shatter, revealing his scorched skin. Might Dai stabilized his body again, looked down at the scorched flesh, frowned, and said, It seems that women can't deal with you, since that's the case. Speaking, Might Dai crossed his arms on his chest and shouted at the same time, The 6th door, the view door, open. Stretch out your arms. Boom. The astonishing aura burst out from Might Dai's body as if it were real. The dazzling green light is like a scorching sun, soaring into the sky. Seeing this scene, both the white-haired old woman and the white-haired old man frowned slightly. Obviously, they all sensed a hint of danger. The white-haired old man sighed. Tisk tisk, interesting, really interesting, a mere genin can actually reach this level. Course, before he finished speaking, Might Dai suddenly clenched his fists and shouted, "Morning Peacock." Chapter 291-Injured. Ability of the sixth gate of the 8 inner gates is Morning Peacock. Morning Peacock is also very simple. The 6 doors are opened, and the physical function is greatly improved. The fist rubs the air to generate flames, which turns into a fire rain, and there is no space for breathing, and it rushes towards the enemy overwhelmingly. Call, call, call. Countless fireballs fell from the sky and rushed towards the 2 old men. The gorgeous flames dyed Yuhi's sky, as bright as the sunrise, as dazzling as the peacock's tail feathers. The white-haired old woman frowned slightly when she saw this scene, and said, "Although you are a genin, your strength is comparable to that of Jonin. I recognize your strength." Speaking of this, the white-haired old woman suddenly sneered, raised her fan at the same time, and said, "However, your strength is still insignificant in front of me." After finishing speaking, the white-haired old woman raised the fan with one hand, and quickly hand seal with the other hand, while muttering words, and finally slammed the fan down. Call. The wind is howling. When all the fireballs meet the gust of wind, it is like the residual snow meets the lava, and they are all extinguished in an instant. Might Dai's expression did not change, but he still waved his fists quickly, countless fist shadows appeared, and the scene was spectacular. But the fireballs produced by his fist rubbing against the air were all blown away by the gust of wind, and not a single one remained. "Ha ha, it's ridiculous that the mayfly shakes the tree." The white-haired old woman smiled disdainfully and said, "Although you are strong, you chose the wrong target to assassinate. It is not so easy for the old man." However, before she could finish her words, a sudden bang sounded. I saw her chest suddenly dented violently, as if being hit by a bison, and immediately the whole person flew out uncontrollably. Wow! In the process of flying out, she spat out a mouthful of blood, and Yuhi-run's face turned pale instantly. Immediately afterwards, fist marks appeared one after another on the surface of her body, deeply dented in her flesh and blood. Every time a fist mark appeared, it would make a muffled sound, knocking her body out again. Seeing this scene, the face of the white-haired old man changed slightly, but he was not an ordinary person after all, and he understood the principle of the matter the next moment. Might Dai has extremely powerful strength. The strength of his fist rubs against the air to create flames, while Watanabe's only blows out the flames, but does not let the strength of Might Dai's swing disappear. Before, Might Dai's power was a tangible power because it was wrapped in flames. But now, his power has become an invisible power, and Watanabe can't see it. That's why he ended up in this tragic state. The old man and Watanabe were rivals and wished she died, but now he and Watanabe were grasshoppers tied to a rope. If Watanabe was killed, he might not be able to survive alone. Therefore, the old man did not hesitate at all, and immediately flashed his body. A flash of electric light erupted, and his body instantly appeared behind Watanabe and hugged her. Then there was another flash of lightning, and he disappeared with Watanabe in his arms, and the next moment came to a position 20 or 30 meters to the left. Boom boom boom. And the power that Might Dai wielded was all in vain, falling on the ground, making a huge and long roar. The ground trembled, and dust rose into the sky, blocking the view. Kiba teeth in Watanabe's mouth have been knocked out in half. She vomited blood and was supported by the old man before she could stand on the ground. Chapter 292-Open the 7th door. This person is very strong. We can't underestimate the enemy, and we will kill him together. Watanabe said in a low voice. Her eyes were full of killing intent. Even if you don't tell me, the old man will definitely try his best to kill this traitor. The white-haired old man nodded, with electric light flashing in his eyes, and said with a sneer, "I want to see how powerful a genin can be." Before he finished speaking, lightning flashed from his whole body, and the dazzling thunder made a crackling sound, which exploded between the heavens and the earth. At the same time, a whirlwind appeared around Watanabe Mi's body, supporting her slowly into the air. She stood above the sky, overlooking Might Dai below, and said coldly, "If we can work together to deal with you, even if it's an honor to die." As soon as she finished speaking, the white-haired old man turned into a bolt of lightning with a strange speed, rushing straight towards Might Dai. At this time, Might Dai was already a little collapsed, and his whole body was sweating, but it was instantly evaporated and turned into green steam covering the surface of his body. Obviously, the sixth gate of the 8 inner gates is a great consumption for him. Might Dai also rushed forward when he saw the white-haired old man rushing forward, obviously wanting to confront the white-haired old man head-on. But at this moment, a whirlwind suddenly descended from the sky. The whirlwind was condensed by countless sharp wind blades, and it was full of danger. Might Dai immediately turned sideways to dodge. But at this moment, the ground beneath Might Dai's feet suddenly collapsed, and a tornado burst out from under the ground, directly overturning Might Dai's body. Might Dai was like a cheetah, flipping somersaults in midair, but just as he was about to land steadily, there was a flash of electric light in front of him, and the white-haired old man appeared in front of him instantly like a ghost. The surface of the fist was covered with dazzling thunder, and it fell on his chest mercilessly. With the sound of boom, in an instant, Might Dai's chest sank suddenly, and his body flew out uncontrollably, spurting a large mouthful of blood from his mouth. The white-haired old man chased after the victory, and with another punch, he directly beat Might Dai's body into a kite with a broken string, flew more than 100 meters, broke countless trees, and formed a cloud of dust. Hee, Genin is just Genin after all, it's just an ant. The white-haired old man stood on the spot, maintaining a punching posture, sneering disdainfully, looking at the dust in the sky ahead. His eyes seemed to be looking at an ant. "Yamamoto, don't give him a chance to breathe, kill him now." Watanabe Mi roared loudly. "No problem." The white-haired old man grinned, his body turned into an electric light again, and rushed into the dust. Li Yi hid in the grass in the distance and frowned slightly when he saw this scene. He could never let Might Dai sacrifice in vain now, so he was ready to help. But at this moment, a loud roar suddenly sounded from the dust. The 8 inner gates, the 7th gate, the shop gate, open. Boom! A huge gust of wind roared out of the dust, rose into the sky, and instantly blew all the dust away. Dust dissipated, revealing the figure of Might Dai. At this time, the light on his body was no longer green, but blue. The amazing aura emanating from his body made the white-haired old man feel a hint of danger. HMPH, put on a pose, look at the trick. The white-haired old man snorted coldly, still disdain for Might Dai, punched with murderous energy, and slammed forward mercilessly. Chapter 293_Advantage. The 7th gate of the 8 inner gates, the last gate before the death gate, the body begins to emit blue steam produced by the evaporation of sweat. The body function is greatly improved, and only one punch can severely damage the enemy. In the original Hokage, Might Dai opened the 7th gate and defeated Kisame Hoshigaki. And now, Might Dai has also opened the 7th door. However, in the 7th gate, Might Dai's fighting power is obviously not as good as that of his son Might Dai. According to Li Yi's estimation, the two old guys should be cage-level ninjas, but because they are old and frail, their real combat power should be equivalent to elite Jonin. If you switch to Might Dai and deal with two elite Jonin, you only need to open the 6th door and you can easily defeat them. However, Might Dai is not as good as Might Dai, so the 6th gate can only be tied with the two of them. No one can do anything about it. When they were on Earth, many people compared Might Dai's record with Might Dai's record. Might Dai opened 8 doors and dealt with the 7 elite Jonin of the 7 ninja swordsmen, and only killed 4 in the remaining 3. They all ran away, and Might Dai almost kicked out the finale after opening 8. It is the same to open 8 doors, but the strength of the two sides is earth-shaking. The most important thing is that Might Dai is still very young and has not yet reached his peak, so even if he opens 8 doors now, he may not be able to reach the record in the original book. Therefore, according to Li Yi's estimation, after Might Dai opened the 7th gate, although his combat power was greatly improved, he might not be able to kill the 2 old guys. After all, the 2 old guys are not vegetarian. Of course, there is nothing wrong with beating them. Sure enough, seeing the white-haired old man punching straight, Might Dai was expressionless, without a trace of fear at all, and the next moment, he clenched his right hand and stepped forward at the same time, slamming up against the white-haired old man's fist. The white-haired old man's whole body was covered with electric light, making a crackling sound, and a violent momentum lingered around his body. However, when the 2 fists collided, the electric light on the white-haired old man collapsed with a bang. It was followed by a click sound. The arm of the white-haired old man was twisted and deformed instantly. Before he felt the pain, his body flew out directly, and with the strong wind, he smashed straight into the distance. And in the process of flying out, he felt the pain of twisting and breaking the bones of his right arm, and let out a scream. Seeing this scene, Watanabe Mi's face changed slightly, and she immediately waved the fan, releasing a soft wind, like a sponge, slowing down the white-haired old man's body. But at this moment, Might Dai, like a ghost, appeared behind Miyuki Watanabe out of thin air, punched the air, and slammed into Miyana Watanabe. Watanabe Mi's hair stood up all over her body, her face changed greatly, she wanted to dodge, but Might Dai's fist was too fast, she couldn't dodge at all. So, Might Dai punched Watanabe Mi's body with one punch. With a bang, Watanabe Mi's body turned into a wooden stake. Substitute. Although she used the avatar technique in time, she still did not completely escape the power of Might Dai's punch. When Watanabe Mi reappeared, her shoulders were sunken, and there was a trace of blood on the corner of her mouth. Standing beside the white-haired old man, her face was extremely gloomy, and she lowered her voice and said, "This kid is too weird, we are not his opponents, it's the best way to go." The white-haired old man nodded in agreement. "Can't afford it, can't I hide?" But at this moment, a loud roar suddenly sounded between the heaven and the earth. Day Tiger. Chapter 294 Fight with all your might. The wind is blowing up. The violent power turned into a real giant tiger visible to the naked eye. The power rubbed the air and made a huge sound, like a tiger roaring in the forest. The 2 old men raised their heads with shocked expressions, looking up at the white giant tiger that appeared out of thin air. The 2 of them stood in the gust of wind, their eyes trembling, and they seemed to feel fear. But the 2 of them are not vegetarians. The next moment, they came back to their senses, and Watanabe Mi shouted, "We can't run, we have to fight hard." "Ha, even if you don't say it, the old man knows it very well." The white-haired old man sneered, then quickly hand seal with both hands, and his face became extremely gloomy, and said, "How could this Might Dai be a genin? The lethality of his move is probably enough to kill any elite jonin." Quote. HMPH, that kid Sarutobi Hiruzen is really an unqualified Hokage, such an excellent talent, he is only judged as genin. If he is not our enemy, then I will definitely use him to make the best use of his abilities. Watanabe Mi also nodded in agreement. Although the 2 of them were talking, their movements did not stop at all. Anyway, hand seal was getting faster and faster. The gust of wind swirled around Watanabe Mi's body, getting bigger and bigger, gradually forming a tornado hurricane, reaching the sky and the ground. Thunder lingered around the body of the white-haired old man, getting more and more violent, making a crackling sound, and the electric light was as bright as the scorching sun. The 2 will no longer retain their strength, and they will go all out. Other Jonins saw this scene, they all swallowed their saliva in fear and backed away involuntarily. There is an old saying that when gods fight, mortals suffer. They want to be the mortal who suffers. They just want to live. So they go with their fear instinct, turn around and run. Damn, why is Might Dai so powerful? Isn't he a genin? Might Dai is also too good at hiding. My friends with him for so many years, I didn't know that he still has such power. Although I don't know Might Die, I've heard his name. Although he has no ninjutsu talent, he exercises every day and tortures his body all the time. Such a person with extremely strong self-control, it's hard not to be strong. Quote. Several jonins have different expressions and different thoughts in their hearts. At this time, the means of the three people have been condensed and ended. The chakra in Watanabe Mi's body has been emptied. She is panting and sweating all over her body. Because of the exhaustion, her body is almost unable to stand upright, but she still shouts, "Futon, wind-style tornado." A straight tornado soared into the sky, whistling between the heavens and the earth, spinning rapidly, uprooting countless trees. The situation of the white-haired old man is no better than that of Watanabe, and he is almost collapsed, but there is indeed a boundless thunder behind him, which turns into a sea of thunder, and the rays of light bloom, making this night seem to have turned into day. He shouted, "Go!" Lehi moved slowly, rushed violently, and collided with the tornado hurricane. But the two don't cancel each other out, they merge with each other. I saw Watanabe Mi and the white-haired old man formed the same seal, opened their mouths at the same time, and shouted in unison, "Rongfa tornado thunderstorm." Ba-ah. A huge thunder tornado suddenly took shape, and it rang between the heavens and the earth. Chapter 295-Watanabe Miyoshi. Without any fancy, the tornado collided with the white tiger. Boom! The huge crash sounded like firecrackers, resounding between the heavens and the earth, straight into the sky. Call! The gust of wind blew the forest with a radius of 100 meters to the ground, and there was no tree. Li Yi was hiding was also lifted up, but no one in the room found Li Yi. After all, everyone's eyes were on the battle between the tornado and the giant tiger, and of course they didn't have the energy to pay attention to Li Yi. Li Yi quietly retreated into the distance, squinting at the center of the battle. And the battle between the two sides soon became sub-Akatsuki. The white giant tiger was unstoppable, and it just tore apart the tornado and rushed towards the two old people. The two old men were shocked. How is this possible? You must know that thunder and wind overcome each other, and the fusion ninjutsu of thunder and wind can disintegrate all chakra attacks under the sun. As long as the opponent's attack is made of chakra, it will be torn apart by the thunderstorm, leaving no armor behind. Therefore, it stands to reason that this huge white tiger should be torn to shreds by the thunder tornado. However, what is now being torn to pieces is thunderstorm. Incredible. This might die sacred. Why have such powerful and strange means? The two old men had collapsed, and they didn't even have the strength to move their fingers, let alone escape. Their faces were extremely frightened, and they could only watch the giant tiger fall. "Oh, I didn't expect that I would die with you, the old guy. It's a kind of irony." Watanabe Mi smiled bleakly. "When we had a good relationship back then, we said that we didn't want to be born on the same day in the same year and month, but we asked for the agreement to die in the same year, the same month, and the same day. I didn't expect this agreement to be fulfilled today." The white-haired old man sighed softly. The two were a couple when they were young. However, due to personal reasons, the two separated. Later, due to family reasons, the estrangement between the two became bigger and bigger, and it was impossible to get back together again. Now, being able to die together seems to be a kind of happiness. But at this moment, the white-haired old man suddenly roared, grabbed Watanabe Mi's shoulder, and threw her directly at the giant tiger. After that, the white-haired old man ran away and shouted at the same time, "Take me away, take me away." This scene made everyone present stunned for a moment. What's the situation? So insidious and cunning. However, the few jonins didn't think much about it. It was better to die one than two, so they hurriedly greeted the white-haired old man and prepared to take him away. At this time, Watanabe Mi's body had already landed in the mouth of the giant tiger, and was smashed into pieces by the violent force. Not even bones were left, only a mass of blood slag was scattered on the ground. Mi Watanabe, the hero of Konoha village, died just like that. At the same time, the white-haired old man was getting closer and closer to several Jonin. His eyes were filled with hope. As long as I survive, it doesn't matter who dies. Who is Lao Su? I will definitely survive. Whoever dies, Lao Su cannot die, but Lao Su is the famous family of Konoha village. Laozi is invincible. The corners of the white-haired old man's mouth were already hooked up, showing the arc of a winner, full of pride. But at this moment, a hole appeared out of thin air under his feet, and he didn't pay attention, and a root was planted in the hole. The next moment, the hole disappeared instantly, as if it had never appeared. But the white-haired old man has disappeared and I don't know where to go. Chapter 296-Kill Old Man. In the devil fruit space. The white-haired old man fell to the ground. At this time, he had collapsed, and it was very difficult to move his fingers. He could only turn his eyes and looked around with doubts. This is where? Why has the old man never been here? Could it be reinforcements from Konoha village? Just when the old man was thinking about it, Li Yi's figure appeared in the old man's field of vision. Old man saw Li Yi. He was stunned for a moment, but he didn't expect that there was someone else here. But the next moment, his pupils suddenly shrank slightly, and the expression on his face also changed to the color of surprise, and asked, You, yes. He wanted to speak, but he didn't have the strength to speak, so he could only stammer, word for word. Li Yi walked over to the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man suddenly said, Li Yi. He called out Li Yi's name. Oh. Li Yi couldn't help but be surprised and asked, You know me? After speaking, he lifted the old man up and stroked his back, allowing him to breathe. Old man recovered, and after half a minute, he said, Of course the old man knows you. Your father and old father had a good friendship back then. Oh, is it? Li Yi nodded, thoughtfully. Old man looked around again and said, What is this place? Isn't it real space? That's right. Li Yi nodded. Whose space ninjutsu is this, or the boundary of space blood? The old man had a curious look on his face. Li Yi smiled and said, It's only you and me here. Who are you talking about? Hearing this, the old man was startled and asked incredulously, You actually know such advanced space ninjutsu? Why didn't I know? Why didn't that kid Sarutobi Hiruzen tell me? Why did you hide it from me? I don't know either. Li Yi shook his head. Old man snorted coldly and said domineeringly, HMPH, that kid is really an unqualified Hokage. I only know that there is a Namikaze Minato in Konoha village who knows the art of Hiraishin, but I don't know that there is another one in Konoha village who knows more advanced space. Li Yi of ninjutsu, when I go back, I must criticize that kid properly. He said that, he looked around again, with a look of admiration in his eyes, and said, Self-made space, what a powerful bloodline boundary this is. However, before the old man finished speaking, Li Yi suddenly smiled, It seems that you have no chance to criticize Sarutobi Hiruzen. Hearing this, the old man almost blurted out, saying, You little guy, it's really rude, how can you call Hokage's name? However, halfway through his words, his expression suddenly changed, as if he had reacted to something. His expression changed immediately, and he turned his head to look at Li Yi. You say I don't have a chance. What do you mean? Soon as the old man finished speaking, Li Yi grinned at the old man and said, Big. Boom. Glittering gold. The Dinghaishin needle that had been inserted into the old man's body suddenly became thicker and longer, and its volume had skyrocketed. Bang! The Dinghai divine needle directly burst the old man's body. Blood splattered all over the sky. Li Yi was splattered with blood. Li Yi retracted the Dinghai god needle, threw away the flesh and blood from his hands, looked down at the blood-stained clothes, a look of disgust appeared on his face, and murmured, This clothes can't be worn, it's stained with blood, it's too bad. But Li Yi didn't bother, but turned his head to look into the distance, stretched his waist, and said to himself, If you don't save that guy might die, that guy will probably be tortured to death by those Jonins. Chapter 297_appalling. Today's Might Dai can only open the 7th door at most. His physical strength is still unable to open the 8th door of death. Therefore, he cannot die. However, after opening the 7th inner gate, Might Dai collapsed completely. Now that the 8 inner gates have been lifted, he is lying on the ground, unable to even move a finger. However, Watanabe Mi has died, and the white-haired old man has disappeared. I finally finished the task. Might Dai lay on the ground, the corners of his pale mouth curved in satisfaction. Might Dai's chest with a bang. Boom. Suddenly, the ground trembled, a large pit appeared on the ground, and dust splashed up in the sky. Might Dai's chest were just shattered. He spit out a mouthful of blood with a wow, and the already sluggish breath instantly became even more sluggish, with less air in and more out. Man stepped on Might Dai's chest and roared and asked, Dai, why did you do this? They are the big names in our Konoha village. Are you really a missing nin? This person is a warm-hearted person, and he knows Might Dai. At this time, when he sees his compatriots rebelling, he can't help but feel very anxious. He knew Might Dai, but Might Dai didn't know him. Might Dai lay on the ground and said with difficulty, Hee, don't waste your efforts. I won't believe your nonsense. Stop pretending to be people from Konoha village. My task is to be handed over by Lord Hokage himself. Mine, even if I die, I have to complete the mission. You fart. Man scolded. They are the famous family of our country of fire. When Lord Hokage sees them, they have to respectfully call their predecessors. How could Lord Hokage kill them? Can you think about logic before you lie? Hee, don't pretend anymore. If you want to kill or cut it as you please, my mission has been completed. I believe that little brother has the ability to kill that old man. Might Dai sneered grimly. Dai, stop being obsessed. It's not too late to look back. Tell me where Yamamoto-sama has gone. His position is higher than that of Watanabe-sama. He can't die. The man yelled. Oh, I won't tell you. Might Dai sneered. In fact, how could he know where the white-haired old man is now? He only knew that the white-haired old man had fallen into Li Yi's space, but how could he know the specific location of Li Yi's space? Dai, stop being obsessive. If you continue like this, you will make a big mistake. The man shouted loudly. He is more patient. However, the other man in black was not as patient as him. Holding a sword, his face was extremely gloomy. He walked slowly in front of Might Dai, and said, Your name is Might Dai, right? I'll give you a chance to live now, and tell the position of Lord Yamamoto. If not, I will kill you. Hee, I said I don't know. You can kill if you have the ability. However, before Might Dai finished speaking, his voice was replaced by a shrill scream. Cut off Might Dai's right arm with one sword. PFF'd. Blood splattered. Might Dai's face was contorted in pain. It hurts. Don't worry, I won't let you die. Before you tell the whereabouts of Lord Yamamoto, I will torture you and let you know what is real. Life is better than death. The man in black held a sharp sword and drew bloodstains one after another on Might Dai's skin. Chapter 298_Who Kills Whom? Might Dai has been tortured beyond human form. However, he has only one sentence from beginning to end. I don't know anything. You can give me a good time if you have the ability. The black-clothed man was originally an impatient person, and now he has been grinding with Might Dai for so long, and he has not gotten any useful information, so he can't help but feel very anxious. The next moment, he bit Kiba, clenched his fists and said angrily, Since you want to die so much, then I will fulfill you. Don't worry, for the sake of us who were once in the same country, you will have no pain whatsoever. To die is my last pity for you. After speaking, the man in black raised the sharp sword in his hand high, and the blade reflected the cold light under the moonlight, making people shudder. Another man hurriedly discouraged him and said, Give me 2 minutes to talk to Might Dai. I believe that Might Dai will never betray our Konoha village. He must have some unspeakable difficulties. The man in black pushed the other side away and scolded, "Do you believe? You believe, but I don't believe it. This person is a traitor. The only way to kill him is to hurry up. Get out of the way for me. Captain, give me a chance to persuade him, okay?" The man hurriedly stepped forward to dissuade him again. "Hee, do you still know that I am your captain? Are you the captain or am I the captain? If you don't want to die, get out of the way." The man in black pushed the other side away again. The latter was desperate, sighed, and stopped meddling. Might Dai has become a missing nin. He should be ready to be killed at any time. He can't handle this. I thought Might Dai was a diligent, honest man, but I didn't expect him to become a missing nin. What the hell is going on in this world? Is it driving the honest man crazy? The man sighed in his heart. At this moment, the sharp sword in the man's hand in black has been slowly falling, and it is about to cut through the aorta of Might Dai's neck. Might Dai closed his eyes, but the corners of his mouth grinned, revealing 2 rows of neat and white Kobo teeth, reflecting the light in the bright moonlight. Face death with a smile. However, in the eyes of the man in black, his smile became a provocation. Naked provocation. "You are courting death." The man in black was furious, and with a sharp flip of the sword in his hand, he was about to cut Might Dai's aorta. However, at the critical moment, Might Dai's body suddenly moved down a point, causing the sword to miss and not cut the aorta of his neck. However, the strong wind carried by the long sword left a Yuhi mark on Might Dai's neck. It is conceivable how powerful the sword was from the man in black just now. The man in black froze for a moment. What happened? Why don't I feel real? Missed a hit. Why did his body sink? One question after another appeared in the mind of the man in black. However, the next moment, he understood. Because of the ground beneath Might Dai's body, a hole appeared out of thin air. And Might Dai's body has fallen into the hole. "Don't think about leaving." The man in black immediately reacted, yelled, and threw the sharp sword in his hand towards Might Dai, trying to shoot through Might Dai. His attention has always been on Might Dai, and now he is attacking Might Dai with all his strength, so he did not find that behind him, a young man appeared at this moment. The young man held a golden needle in his hand. When the sharp sword of the man in black came out of his hand, the sharp golden needle in the young man's hand had already pierced into his body. Chapter 299-kill. The sharp sword penetrated Might Dai's body. The corner of the man in black evoked a victorious arc. "I won. You found it yourself." However, the man in black's attention was always on Might Dai's body, so he didn't feel that a gold needle had been inserted into his body. "See God needle." A young voice sounded in the ear of the man in black, big. The hair on the man in black stood up at this moment. Although he didn't know what happened, his years of combat experience made him feel an extremely strong danger. Without any hesitation, the man in black wanted to use the avatar technique. However, it was too late. With a loud bang, the body of the man in black was directly smashed by a huge golden stick. Blood splattered all over the sky. The man in black is dead. Another man saw this scene. His face changed greatly. He hurriedly took a defensive posture, and asked, "Who are you?" Li Yi grinned at the man, revealing 2 rows of neat white Kobo teeth, and said, "The one who will kill you." Speaking, Li Yi sprinted out and rushed towards the man. Man wasn't sure about Li Yi's details, so he didn't dare to confront him head-on, so he turned around and ran away. The man's speed was so fast that Li Yi couldn't keep up. At the same time, clumps of white fog floated from afar, obscuring the surrounding vision. "Oh, demonic illusion." Li Yi narrowed his eyes. This is demonic illusion at its lowest level and is only used to block the view. The advanced demonic illusion can act on the human brain, so that the enemy does not know how to die, such as Uchiha Shisui's Kotoamatsukami. Li Yi stood motionless on the ground, like a lamb to be slaughtered. At this moment, a vigorous figure appeared behind Li Yi's body, holding a black kunai in his hand, and stabbed towards Li Yi's head. Li Yi neither evaded nor defended, and seemed completely unaware. The corner of the Jonin's mouth evoked a gloomy arc. Die for me. However, just at the critical moment, a golden light suddenly erupted from Li Yi's body, shaking Jonin's eyes, and almost at the same time, a loud low-pitched roar sounded from Li Yi's body. Roar! A huge golden dragon spewed out from Li Yi's body, carrying an unparalleled impact, and crashed onto Jonin's chest. At this time, the kunai in Jonin's hand was only a finger's width from the back of Li Yi's head. The next moment, with a loud bang, Jonin was blasted out, his chest collapsed violently, and a mouthful of blood mixed with internal organs spurted out of his mouth. His breath instantly became sluggish, with less air in and more air out. Advantage of the fact that people were dying, Li Yi followed closely, punching punch after punch on Jonin's body. 7 or 8 seconds later, Jonin was about to be beaten to death by Li Yi, but Li Yi didn't let him go. Ni-chan. Jonin hiding in the dark. Seeing that Li Yi was so brutal, they decided to retreat, planning to escape back to Konoha village first. Heaven and earth are big, small life is the biggest. However, they will be disappointed in the end. No, they will be disappointed in the end. Chapter 300-Distrust. In order to distract Li Yi, several Jonins ran in different directions. Better to die one than two. Although they were very panicked, they didn't mess up, and instead judged quite wisely. Even if Li Yi pursued, he could only pursue one person, and the others could take this opportunity to escape. Save more people's lives at the least cost. They all thought that Li Yi would definitely be overwhelmed. However, when Li Yi saw this scene, not only did he not panic at all, on the contrary, he smiled lightly, with an extremely disdainful arc on the corner of his mouth, and slowly spit out a few words. Can you run? His voice was not loud, as if he was talking to himself, and could only be heard by himself. However, his words became God's prophecy. He finished speaking. Not far away, a Jonin let out a shrill scream. How is this possible? This is impossible. Why am I in the 4 purple sun formation? Almost at the same time, an angry roar came from the other direction. The 4 purple suns formation is the secret technique of our Konoha village. Except for Konoha village, no other country can use this formation technique. Does Konoha village really want to kill me? I didn't make a mistake at all, I'm not convinced. The next moment, another Jonin roared hysterically. I have worked hard for Konoha village for so many years, even if there is no credit, I have worked hard. Why did Konoha village kill me? Why? They all collapsed. They were so devoted to Konoha village that they even gave their lives. However, the village of Konoha abandoned them and stabbed them back. Li Yi stood there and didn't move, looking at the 4 purple faces standing up all around, forming a cuboid, the height reaching the sky. It is the 4 purple sun formation. That year, Sarutobi Hirazen's last battle, the battle with his beloved disciple Orochimaru, was carried out in the 4 purple sun array. At that time, Sarutobi Hirazen was trapped by the 4 purple suns and could not escape. Otherwise, he would not have died tragically under Orochimaru's hands. And now, the 4 purple sun formation in front of him, Li Yi can think of it with his butt, and it must be the work of Sarutobi Hirazen. That old guy, Sarutobi Hirazen, really doesn't trust me. Li Yi sneered. On the surface, Sarutobi Hirazen only sent Might Dai to support Li Yi. In fact, the old guy didn't trust Li Yi at all. He was worried that Li Yi would lose, so he sent 4 extremely powerful Jonin in case of emergency. We are trapped in the 4 Ziyang formation. We can't escape at all. We are fighting with that guy. That's right. I'll fight with him. Even if I die, I'll pull him back. Come on together. Kill him. Several Jonins turned into straight streamers, approaching Li Yi from different directions. Li Yi narrowed his eyes. But at this moment, suddenly, Li Yi seemed to feel something, and immediately raised his head to look at the sky. I saw that above the sky, a light pill flashing with dark purple light descended from the sky, the size of the head, and fell silently. Li Yi's pupils suddenly contracted at this moment. Without the slightest hesitation, his mind moved, a hole appeared directly under his feet, and he immediately fell. The hole disappeared instantly. Several Jonins were stunned when they saw this scene. Why did you run away? Isn't it great? Why are you so cowardly? That's right, Li Yi is indeed cowardly. However, he is not counseling these Jonins, but the dark purple light pill.